To the pirates, the voice sounded like it was shouting that all the boys had been killed in the cabin, and they were thrown into a panic. Hook tried to rally them, but like the wild dogs he had turned them into, they bared their teeth at him, and he realized that if he looked away for even a moment, they would attack him.
Listen up, boys,
he said, ready to sweet-talk or fight as the situation demanded, but never showing fear for even a second.
I figured it out. There's someone on board bringing us bad luck.
Aye, a man with a hook.
No, boys, no, it's the girl. A ship's never had good fortune with a woman aboard. Things will go right once she's gone.
Some of them remembered that Flint used to say something similar.
Might be worth a try.
They muttered uncertainly.
Throw the girl overboard.
Hook shouted, and they charged at the figure in the cloak.
No one can save you now, girl.
Mullins hissed mockingly.
Someone can.
Who?
Peter Pan, the Avenger.
Came the chilling answer. As he spoke, Peter threw off his cloak. Suddenly, they all realized that he was the one who had sabotaged them in the cabin. Hook tried to speak twice, but could not get the words out. I believe his fierce heart broke in that terrible moment. At last, he shouted,
Split him, from chest to belly.
But there was no real force behind it.
Get down there, boys. Attack them.
Peter's voice echoed. In the next instant, the clash of swords roared throughout the ship. If the pirates had stuck together, they surely would have won. But they were still shaken and ran in every direction, slashing wildly, each one believing he was the sole survivor. Man to man, the pirates were stronger, but they only defended themselves. This let the Lost Boys pair up to pick their targets. Some of the scoundrels jumped overboard. Others hid in dark corners where Slightly found them. He did not fight. Instead, he ran around with a lantern and flashed it in their eyes, blinding them so they became easy prey for the bloody swords of the other boys. Little could be heard besides the ring of steel, the occasional scream or splash, and Slightly steadily counting. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think all the pirates were gone when a cluster of wild-eyed Lost Boys surrounded Hook, who seemed to be under some spell that kept him safe, for he held them at bay in a ring of fire. His henchmen were finished, but this man alone seemed a match for them all. Over and over they surged toward him, and over he cut a path free. He had even lifted one boy on his hook and was using him like a shield, when another boy, who had just run his sword through Mullins, leaped into the fight.
Put away your swords, boys. He is mine.
Suddenly, Hook stood face to face with Peter. The others backed off, forming a circle around them. For a long while, the two enemies stared each other down. Hook trembled slightly, and Peter wore a strange smile.
So, Pan, this is all you're doing?
Yes, James Hook, it's all my doing.
Arrogant, disrespectful child. Get ready to meet your fate.
Dark, devious man, come at me.
With no further words, they crossed swords, and for a moment, neither gained the upper hand. Peter was a brilliant swordsman, parrying with dazzling speed. Every so often, he followed a feint with a thrust that slipped past Hook's defense. But Peter's shorter reach kept him from landing a truly decisive blow. Hook, almost equally skilled but less agile in his wrist work, drove Peter backward by sheer force, hoping to end the duel with a favorite move he had learned long ago from barbecue in Rio. To his shock, that move was deflected again and again. Then Hook tried to close in and finish Peter off with his iron hook, which had been slashing at the air this whole time. But Peter ducked under it, lunged fiercely, and stabbed Hook in the ribs. Seeing his own blood, whose odd color disgusted him, the sword fell from Hook's hand, leaving him at Peter's mercy.
Now!
Yelled all the Lost Boys. But Peter made a grand gesture, inviting Hook to pick up his sword again. Hook snatched it at once, feeling a desperate, tragic recognition that Peter was displaying admirable form. Until now, he had feared he was fighting some kind of demon, but darker doubts swept over him.
Pan, who and what are you?
He asked in a hoarse voice.
I am youth. I am joy. I am a little bird that just broke out of its shell.
Of course, this was nonsense, but it proved to poor Hook that Peter truly had no idea who or what he was, and that was the height of perfect style.
Have at it again.
Hook cried in despair. Now he fought like a human whirlwind, and every sweep of his deadly sword would have cut in half anyone who got too close. But Peter hovered around him like a feather, as though Hook's own sword gusts pushed him out of range. Again and again, Peter darted in and jabbed. At this point, Hook fought without hope. His wild heart no longer cared about survival. He craved only one last wish, to see Peter show bad form before Hook's life ended. So he gave up the duel, sprinted into the gunpowder room, and set it alight.
In 2 minutes, the ship will blow itself to pieces.
Now, he thought, we'll see someone's true colors. But Peter emerged from the powder room holding the explosive shell, then calmly tossed it overboard. What kind of style was Hook himself showing? Although he was led astray in life, we can be somewhat relieved, without exactly pitying him, that in the end he stayed true to his background. The other lost boys swooped around him now, taunting him, as he staggered aimlessly across the deck, swinging helplessly at them. His mind wasn't in the fight anymore. It had drifted back to the playing fields of his youth, or the times he did well in school, or watching some famous wall game from a storied wall. His shoes were correct, his waistcoat was correct, his tie was correct, and his socks were correct. James Hook, not entirely without a spark of heroism, goodbye, for this is his final moment. Seeing Peter drift toward him through the air with a dagger raised, Hook jumped onto the railing, intending to throw himself into the sea. He did not realize that the crocodile waited below, because we had stopped the ticking clock to spare him that dreadful knowledge at the very end. He had one last triumph, which I don't think we should begrudge him. Standing on the rail and glancing back at Peter gliding toward him, Hook motioned for him to use his foot instead of his dagger. Peter, in response, kicked instead of stabbed. Finally, Hook got the bad form he so desired.
Bad form.
He taunted and went happily to the crocodile. And that was the end of James Hook.